Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome back into Inside the Game. It is Monday, February the 10th. It is the day after Super Bowl Sunday, the biggest game of the year, even though it's only been a month into the year, I guess, right? And biggest game of the year. To be fair, and Nathan, we'll get into this here, and obviously a little more in depth. But I felt the game was a big miss, but that's my perspective. Down the Turner alongside Nathan Wangler, Inside the Game, National Soccer Network. We're watching it on right now on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Roku. And do you agree with me that yesterday was a miss?
I don't know if it was necessarily a miss. I thought, listen, I thought the show, the entire thing was great. I think the commercials have taken a step back as we've gone along. I think we live in a generation now where there's just a list of certain things that you just can't say and do, and I remember growing up as a kid, and maybe it's just because I've gotten older and more cynical. Maybe I'm just old man yelling at a cloud now that I just don't think they're that funny. But a handful of them were pretty entertaining, but for the most part, I just think the commercials year after year are a miss. Like I said, there are a few of them that had me chuckling, few of them that had me laughing, but just not quite the same experience that it used to be. And again, maybe I'm alone on this. Maybe there's people out there that are like, dude, they're still just as funny as what they used to be. But I remember there used to be a time where like you didn't want to go to the bathroom because you didn't want to miss the commercials. And then if it was a good game and you came back, then you really didn't want to go to the bathroom because you're going to miss something. So the Super Bowl experience is still it's fun. It's tough when you don't have a horse in the race, but I don't know. The commercials were okay. I would have to find, maybe we can talk about our favorite Super Bowl commercials on another episode on here. But I thought there were a few that were somewhat entertaining. In terms of the game, listen, that happens in football. We see it all the time, right? Good teams just have a bad week, and I mean bad as in like everything goes wrong. There's not a single thing that went right, and it just so happened to be in the biggest game of the season that ended up happening. And so yeah, Philly rolled them, and Mama said there'd be days like this, and we knew that Kansas City wasn't. They had a kryptonite. They weren't necessarily the same team that we've seen in that position years before, but I mean, to get back there a third time it ain't too bad either. So I don't know if it was necessarily a miss. I just wasn't as invested, because
Yeah,
like I said, I didn't really have a horse in the race. And I think it stings more when the Lions have been as close as they have been. In recent years, when I was growing up, when they were putting up 3-4 win seasons, it was like people would get excited for the Super Bowl because that's all we knew around Michigan was like, all right, well, we got to pick one team and then we'll talk about it and have big parties and enjoy watching it. But now it's like there's this kind of built-in expectation that we have right up until about 2 weeks before the Super Bowl that we're going to be there, and then we're not there. And now I got to watch Philly win their second and however many years, and Kansas City get back there for, I mean, the last decade. I feel like they've been there every single year. So from people, from people who weren't as invested, maybe it was a miss, and there were aspects that are a little bit different as the years go along. But I thought it was an okay production.
Yeah. Well, a couple things. One is, I truly believe, obviously, had last year, I felt like the Chiefs should have not won. I know I still have Peter Singh on the. Sorry, I'm late. I apologize. I still feel like the Chiefs shouldn't have won last year. I just didn't feel like they've played very similar last night that they did last year. They did not look good last year. And I think anyone that watched that game was like, man, if another team was there other than the 49ers, that they would have lost that game. And I think if the Eagles had been there last year, even though they had lost obviously against Tampa Bay, I think Eagles beats them last year too. They do not they're a very good team. But to be fair, and they have a very good quarterback, a very good. But it seems to me like the more physical teams are coming out of the NFC right now, and I just feel like there's not really this AFC team outside of the Chiefs and the Bills that have. You're like, wow, and I think the Bills would have been a way better game yesterday. Had they won and they made their way in there. It's weird. It's like almost as if like the Kansas City Chiefs are like the kryptonite to Josh Allen, right? It's like he just can't get over. It's very reminiscent of like the old Colts versus Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, right? They would always see each other in an AFC Championship game, and Tom Brady would always win.
Mhm.
right? It's
Yeah.
very reminiscent to that, right? Where
Yeah.
well, but again, I mean, Tom Brady won it 7 times.
Yeah. Well, it was also, I mean, it was a Vic Fangio defensive masterclass. He's the best defensive coordinator arguably in the history of football. And that's going up against one of the more dynamic offenses in the history of football. The entire game came down to the Eagles defensive line. You know, if you give Mahomes time to improvise, and even if you are good at getting to him, there's still his escapability that's really good. He was on twinkle toes the whole night. He didn't know how to step up into the pocket. He didn't know how to evade pressure. And it's funny because we're not normally used to seeing that from him. Normally he's the magician, you know, between him and Aaron Rodgers. When I think of guys that can just get out of trouble and make stuff happen, I mean, those are the top two on my list when I think of that stuff. So I think, you know, that was just a matchup of probably the best defensive mind in the game against one of the best offenses in the game, and they just took away anything the Chiefs were able to do. I mean, we exist in a world now, and I know we're on a soccer show, so we gotta we gotta graduate past this at a certain point, but we live in a world where you got your Lions attire on, where, you know, throwing the football and big plays, that's the flashy stuff, is what gets the headlines, but you still need to be able to do one thing to win games, and that's run the football. And Kansas City could not do that last night. So that means the big physical guys on the other side can just pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. And that's exactly what they did. And you know, the Chiefs offensive line has always been really good. And obviously like Travis Kelce was nowhere to be seen last night. That to me was the most shocking part of it. Was they
Either was Taylor Swift.
Yeah, well, she was. Did you hear her getting booed the couple of times that they put her up on the screen?
Yeah, that's because they, you know, it's all the Eagles fans. You know,
Philly's my aunt grew up in Philly. That's man, they are sleaze bags, but they know they are, so they just kind of lean into that. You know, it's the city of brotherly love, man. They own up to it. So you keep doing your thing, Philly. It doesn't bother me.
Hey, I want to start a new segment that we're going to do here every day, and I want to do this to highlight what we're doing on our website. And so I'm gonna start this new segment, and it's gonna just be like, hey, what's happening at NSN, right? And so this is our website, so National Soccer Network. This is where you get all your soccer news here in regards to what happened here over the weekend. What announcement did we make here on Saturday? And we made the announcement Saturday afternoon that we are going to be doing this exclusive English commentary of the Chihuahua Savage on Valentine's Day. So that Chihuahua Savage hosting San Diego Sockers, our very own Neil Rule will be on the call for that. But this is where you'd catch that article. It's available on our homepage on the nationalsoccernetwork.com. But again, this is a great story that we're glad to share, right? And talk about, because again, you know, we have this great relationship with the MASL, and now we get a chance to do this English only commentary. There have been other English commentaries that have come out of Chihuahua, but they've been for the away team, right? So when a team has gone in there and they have an away game, they've tried to pull off the English only. This is the first time that the home side, now Chihuahua is not in the one, we're doing this as the home environment. So it'll be fun. It'll be exciting. And it's going to happen here this Friday night at 9 p.m.
And that's a good game, man. I mean, Chihuahua, they've kind of had their reign of terror over the MASL. It's cool because, you know, they're not American based. They're down in Mexico, and it reminds me a little bit of how the American sides kind of own the NHL for the last 30 years. And of course, it hasn't been 30 years for Chihuahua, but the last handful of years, man, they have run the table. And you want to talk about a team that's deep. I mean, they can do it in a bunch of different ways. Also, another thing I love about that place, that's the best atmosphere in the MASL. I don't know if you've ever seen some of the highlights and stuff, but I mean, they go all out. That is a soccer community through and through. Yeah. So thank you for pulling up the standings. So there you go. Number 1 and number 2 in the MASL. And the Sockers have had a really good run as of late too. They got some pretty good scores, but I think they're on they've won one. So, but yeah, you see the Chihuahua Savage at the top there, 4-game winning streak. KC's really good too. They got this kid, Rion Marquez. He's actually leading the league right now, I think, in goals and assists, I believe. And so he's one of the best players in the league. So KC's right in the mix there too. So it's kind of a race towards the top. You know, it's a little top heavy with some of your best teams, but Chihuahua obviously is they're like the KC Chiefs of the MASL right now, and everyone's just kind of trying to chase them down. You got the Sockers who are the Eagles, and then I don't know the Comets were the Bills, I don't know, something like that. But you got everyone kind of chasing down Chihuahua for that top spot. So that'll be a game a lot of eyeballs will be on, and I'm sure they're happy to have an English broadcast too, because even with me watching the games live on our platform, we would pick up the feed. They will always be in Spanish. And here's the thing about Spanish commentators, JT, they bring the energy. And if there's one thing you never have to worry about with those guys, that one thing we talked about, bringing the energy, they bring it every single time. So it was entertaining. I didn't know what he was saying, but it was still fun to watch, you know?
Well, and hey, they are. Jimmy comes in saying there's finally a little separation at the top. It's been a logjam for weeks, and it is true. Yeah. But here's something that I want to do here. We made a promo video for this. We have some more promos coming out later this week, but I want to show the promo video for this game coming up here, and we'll take a look. Get ready for an exciting night of action as the Chihuahua Savage take on the San Diego Sockers. Two powerhouses, one unforgettable showdown. It's a Valentine's Day battle you won't want to miss. Tune in for all the high-flying action, fierce rivalry, and unforgettable moments. It's the Chihuahua Savage versus San Diego Sockers live this Valentine's Day, only on the National Soccer Network. Boom. So yeah, so that is coming up this Friday. Again, Neil Rule, Dan Stickerat will be our color commentator. I'll be producing that game. So excited to do that. That's coming up again Friday night, 9 p.m. right here. We will be doing a pregame show as well. I'm pulling all the stops for this, man. We're gonna go full boat in this whole thing. So we'll talk more about that throughout the week. But that's a look ahead here towards a game here on Friday night.
What is a soccer, by the way? Not an SOCCER, but what's a SOCKER?
My guess is
I'm looking at soccer boppers here online.
It's probably a word play on it. You know what I mean? Something like that's my guess.
Okay.
But yeah, I want to dive into this. And it is regarding the Super Bowl. And you said you didn't have anything really invested in the game, right? And to be fair, I haven't been invested in the Super Bowl in a long time, and it's not because of the teams. It's just, to be fair, I mean, I still watch it, but I don't know if I look forward. It's just almost like Christmas, right? Christmas, as a kid, you get really excited about it, and you look forward to it, blah blah blah. And then as you get older, the magic and the what it ends up kind of more being about gifts and giving, and it loses what I would call its magic. And to me, the Super Bowl has lost its magic, and there's many reasons behind that. One is that a lot of times we go to sporting events and we watch sporting events. We want to escape the world for a little bit, right? We want to escape everything. I just want to go watch the game, right? And granted, let's be honest, people turn the TV off and commercials off. So the commercials are in a normal football game, I don't even try to watch. Obviously, in these games, of course, you want to see every commercial. You want to see what's happening, right? And so the game has turned. All sporting events, by the way, have done this. They've all turned into like a platform to be political, be whatever, right? And that to me has really that's probably what's killed a ton of these events over the last many, many years. Taylor Swift has helped the NFL bring in a new audience, right? And that's probably what has replaced some of the other audience that was like, we don't like what you're doing here. And again, whether you like or don't like the new president, whatever, but this past week, President Trump told the NFL to cut out the end racism thing in the end zones. And Bill Maher actually was interesting. Is I don't want to be someone that get political about all that. I don't. But I think it's important to kind of talk about this for a second, because this is in all sports, by the way. It's like we want to say use the end racism. Of course you don't want racism. Again, unless you're a racist, you would agree with that statement. We don't. No one wants racism. But if you're putting it in the end zone, except racism, right?
Yeah.
But if you put the
Well,
end racism in the end zone, who is it for? Because and that's what Bill Maher was like. He's like, "Who's it for?" Because the racist, it just makes them more upset because they're racist. They're gonna see this and they're gonna be more racist. And the people who are not racist aren't even gonna be paying attention to it because they're not racist. So who is it for, right? And I remember
Yep.
someone on the show on Bill Maher was like, he made the comment. He's like, "Well, they should just put in the end zone, then don't be assholes, right?" And to be fair, that would be a much better message. Just don't be an asshole.
Mhm.
But then you get
Yeah.
into the game, right? And last night commercial, great commercial. Snoop Dogg, Tom Brady. If I was talking about one of the more impactful commercials last night, I would say the Snoop Dogg, Tom Brady commercial where they're both yelling at each other. I hate you. I don't like you. Blah blah blah. Whatever. And at the end, he's like, and then Snoop Dogg is like, man, I hate that I have to even do this commercial in the first place.
Mhm.
Right? Like
Mhm.
I hate, and again, a lot of times you'll see that. We've seen like the pro-life or the pro-choice commercials coming on during football games. We've seen this, that, or the other. I think that the West Virginia, the Rocket like commercial last night was like probably the most like probably touchy-feely one, right? Where they
Mhm.
West Virginia, they're going through that was
Mhm.
like the most touchy-feely one, I think, for the night. And then that flag football one with Pat McAfee, that was great. Like I
Mhm.
think that was the flag football run, right? Like the flag football across the country. That was a really cool one. And that one I
Mhm.
think hit home about making sure every girl in every state in the country makes it a varsity sport, right? Um, but anyways, that was my take. I want to go and escape. And I know that advertisers are gonna want and it's all about the money. I mean, we own a network now, and so, when you own a network, you're gonna allow people to have space to do and advertise what it is that they're doing, and if they're paying the right amount of money, of course, the networks are gonna allow it to happen. You can't allow everything, but you're gonna allow something, and I feel like these games, you lose it loses its authenticity, right? It's like, it's just you don't wanna it's hard, man, because you just wanna watch the game, and maybe they should do something separate. Maybe what they should do is the NFL or all these sporting events should come up with, like, "Hey, if you just want to go watch the game over here and know that none of the bullshit, here's the place to go watch the no bullshit." Like, create,
Mhm.
like, no bullshit channel over here. No commercials, just, or commercials, but it's just, like, whatever, but it's, like, no bullshit channel. NBC should change it to no bullshit channel, but, like, no bullshit. Like, we don't like, just go over here and watch the game here, no commentary,
Mhm.
no bullshit channel. And maybe people
Mhm.
I don't know. I struggle with it, man. I struggle with it.
Yeah. I we have transitioned, and this is in sports in general. We have gone from past eras just football, America. It should be how it is, Steve.
I'm just saying,
Um,
no bullshit channel. I
right.
just call it no bullshit channel.
But we have transitioned in the sports landscape, from a landscape where stuff like politics and all of that was kept separate. And athletes would just go out and play to now, and I look at some of the really big stars in the world of sports, just specifically in America alone. We've seen this transition though of athletes get to a place now to where they don't feel like they have to stay out of the political conversation, but rather they can use their platform to make those statements. Now, whether you agree or disagree with that, that is the era that we've gotten into. I mean, you look at the Colin Kaepernick example. You look at the stuff LeBron James has talked about, and that's I think one of the big things that makes him different. When you talk about him and Jordan, Jordan wasn't he had a huge impact on the world of basketball, but he wasn't a guy that was going to stand up there and make political statements. LBJ took that a different direction. He wants to get involved in all that stuff as well, and I think the other athletes in that sphere saw that happening. So they saw an opportunity to do the same thing as well. Again, regardless of whether or not you disagree or agree with their commentary. So that's where this came from. And that's the era that we live in. And so I think it's hard for people sometimes to swallow that. But I will agree with you on this, though, JT. What, at the end of the day, how does it impact anybody to have, the end racism in the end zones, and even the commercials. Because here's the thing, those commercials I feel like are designed for the people who already agree with the message. Because I watched that commercial last night and I'm like, stuff is kind of getting scary out here. And again, we don't have to talk about it directly right here, but you and me can see things on social media, on the news, and we know what the writing on the wall looks like. I mean, I'm not even like a history nerd per se, but I see things that are done sometimes on a daily basis where I'm like, I feel like I could track that back a few years and see where that was done before and where it didn't go well. And I don't know why we're always destined to repeat history as human beings. It's one of the truths that will forever be, history always repeats itself, period. It will always be that way. So it doesn't take a scientist, and even to our, a rocket scientist, and even to our viewers that aren't American based, I'm sure they kind of feel the same thing. There's a lot of scary stuff that's going on out there. So I'm okay with athletes using their platform to talk about that stuff, because at the end of the day, it's America. And I hate this whole shut up and dribble mentality, because I have a platform and I'm talking about it right now. Okay, I don't have multi-million dollars and all of this, this reputation. So it's not like a ton of people are paying attention, but I think everybody is open to having those conversations. But what are you actually doing about it? That's my problem, right? The NFL, if you're going to virtue signal, you have to do something about it, right? It's the whole put your money where your mouth is thing. What are you actually doing in the community to try and end this, to try and change this? So I have no issue with athletes making political statements or speaking up. I think if it really bothers you that much, I mean, just learn how to ignore it, pay attention to the game. But I get it.
I don't have a problem with the political. I don't have, I mean, again, we can argue about a number of things about political stances. I don't think that there's a place to do it during the middle of a game. I think that there's, you should do, if you want, use your platform post game to do,
right,
but not maybe in the game. But
right.
This is where it gets me to, right? Last night, these teams are being introduced on the field, coming out from the locker rooms and from the tunnel, right? And you've got John Hamm and you've got Bradley Cooper. Okay, now granted, two well-known actors, right? We know Bradley Cooper's a huge Eagles fan. We know John Hamm is a huge Chiefs fan. Obviously, Paul Rudd, huge Chiefs fan.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't we grabbing like Joe, Eagles fan from Philadelphia, to have him do that instead? Why are we grabbing the multi-million-dollar, super elitist celebrity to announce the players coming out of the tunnel? I'm not saying that they shouldn't give them that, but actually I am saying it. You shouldn't be doing that, NFL. Why are we having the Joe fan, longtime Eagle fan, announcing those players coming out of the tunnel versus Bradley Cooper, who the only reason he's being given that opportunity is because he makes millions and millions of dollars a year.
He's getting a paycheck,
and it's like, come on. I mean, like, and again, it devalues it. Why are we having like Joe fan do it? I don't understand why the fan. Have a contest.
Yeah, it's corporate.
Yeah,
it's all corporate. It's all corporate. It's all corporate. It's all money.
But the NFL doesn't have to. You of all the sports and the NFL does not. They could just turn the lights on and the thing will make gazillions of dollars. They don't have to do anything. They could just show up in New Orleans 2 days before the event and they still make a shit ton of money. So this is as much as it is corporate. To be fair, it's more we do it because we can. Not because we have to. It's because we can. It's like, we can. We can. We own the space, so we'll do whatever the hell we want with it. And I don't know. I do, but it's no different than in FIFA. It's no different than anywhere else, right? You think about the World Cup. What do they do? The World Cup. They bring all these celebrities out, right? I mean, last night they were showing pregame stuff, and they were showing chairs up in the press the area, and they were showing like Adam Sandler's chair had his name on it. Paul Rudd has his name on it. So it's like going to the Oscars. These guys are literally being put in a room in this box, and they had their names on their chair. Like you're
Yeah.
This is the part that
Yeah.
it get, you know, I just, yeah,
And
that's why.
this is why I like watching like those Netflix documentaries like Receiver, like behind the scenes stuff. That really puts you in the game. But sometimes when you're watching these big productions, listen, they know what brings the money in. And the truth is, here's the thing about the Super Bowl, and this is why I think it's gotten so corporate. A lot of people don't even watch the game for the football. I would argue a lot of Americans don't even watch the game for the football. You know what they're watching it for? They're watching it to see Taylor Swift. They're watching it for the halftime show. They're watching it to see the celebrities. There was a journalist who asked Justin Fields when they were interviewing, or not Justin Fields, Jesus, Jalen Hurts. There we go. Justin Fields. I don't know why he would be there. But they asked Jalen Hurts, there's going to be a bunch of celebrities at the game. Does that make you nervous at all? And Jalen Hurts, in his typical Jalen Hurts fashion, just a sly smile and was like, no, that's not what we're thinking about. And so to me, that's why it's gotten so corporate, is because it's kind of become like this live reality show. And there just so happens to be a football game going on. Now, I myself am more invested in the football game. Oh, is this the Tom Brady watch right here?
Yeah, $700,000 watch. I'm not sure what's going on my screen, but it just I saw this last night. I saw this morning. I was like, my gosh, man, a 700. It was a gorgeous looking watch. It was gorgeous. If you got the money, and that's why it was funny, because and then so that was Tom Brady's watch. Let's take a look at Andy Reid's watch. Andy Reid, we need
Andy Reid. Andy Reid's the type of old guy that wears those shoes until the soles like wear out of the bottom. I like Andy Reid.
Oh, I'm not discounting that at all, but this is
Looks
Andy
like
Reid's watch right there. There it is.
Yeah, that's the white dad special right there. I'm sure he's got a pair of Skechers on too, all white Skechers.
Well, it's fun. I made a comment last night. I go, Bianca, Andy Reid's, probably making, I don't know, just making $3-4 million a year, right? And it's all right. Screw you, Steve. He's like, they both tell the same time.
Yes. Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Perfectly well stated. Thank you very much. They tell the same exact
and the
time.
timer.
And the timer.
One you can buy at Walmart for $17. The other one you gotta get special ordered for $800,000.
It's funny. They kind of looked like the game itself. Brady's watch was the Eagles, and Belichick, or the other watch was the Chiefs. So that was kind of a representation of how that game went last night.
Again,
so.
I don't dispute that, and I don't have. I probably do have something against Andy Reid's watch. Probably why I said it, but I mean, like, I'm just thinking about, here you are, you're in the Super Bowl, right? And big world's biggest stage. Been there now 5 times, right? I think he's been there a total of 6 times in his career, right? Because he did go there with the Eagles with Donovan McNabb, right? They went to the Super Bowl. And if they lost to I don't know who they lost to, but show off that line. Yeah, I got my Lions watch. There. But my watch is not expensive. I don't spend tons of money on my watches. I do like my watches, but anyways, I feel like you're in that role. You should probably wear something a little nicer. I don't know. I just feel like, but again, Andy Reid's Andy Reid. I'm not going to give him too much shit about it. It wouldn't have mattered what watch you wore last night. They were still going to get rolled. And they did. So, but it's just always interesting, right? We saw Sean McVay last night on the pregame show, and you saw his big ass Super Bowl ring, right? Which is huge, by the way, unbelievably huge. I think I can imagine what that thing weighs, and he was wearing a Rolex of some kind last night. Yeah, I just and that maybe that's just my thing. I just you got Tom Brady up in the press box wearing a $700,000 watch, and you've got Andy Reid down on the sideline wearing a $20 Casio or whatever the hell Timex. It just just seems so. It just seems so. And then you throw in there the bunch of just all this other stuff. I mean, the average
Yeah.
ticket price in that stadium was like $3,000
Yeah.
yesterday. I mean, like that's the average price. I mean,
well, in TB, I'm a big TB guy. I love Tom Brady. He's always been a little Hollywood. Okay, it's just always
he grew up in California, so I mean,
yeah, he's a Sunshine State or not. That's not the Sunshine State, the Golden State. But yeah, he's what we call in the biz sometimes a pretty boy. I mean, that's just kind of who Tom Brady is. He just so happened to have a brilliant mind, and that's what kind of carried him through his career, But he's always been a little Hollywood. Here's the thing you got to understand about football guys, and yeah, a lot of them are idiots. But the one thing that that keeps them alive is just going out and playing. I mean, like they could show up. What was it? What was the Dan Campbell line? It doesn't matter if I have, one ass cheek and 3 toes, like I'm still gonna beat you or something like that. Something along those lines. But that's just who football guys are. A lot of them aren't flashy. But yeah, it literally takes up your entire finger. That's the other thing.
It's got scratches. I hope you have like a scratch resistant platinum ring on there. That's gonna scratch the shit out of your actual wedding band, which is obviously way more valuable than the quote unquote. But look at that watch. That looks like it could be some kind of a Rolex. I'd imagine it's a Rolex, but I'm not a connoisseur of watches per se. Unfortunately, the Super Bowl has become so much about optics on every level, from fans to halftime shows to commercials. The game is priced off for most average fans. It's an elitist event, and more about everything but the football. But again, you get that the World Cup is the same way. I mean, and not in the same extent because there's so many games that take place, at the World Cup, but. In order to go to these things, you have to have a shit ton of money. The cost to get in the game is part of it, but the hotels, everything is through the roof. And welcome to the world of capitalism, right? And
it's not exclusive to just the Super Bowl too. I think about even Lions fans in games and there's become this reputation. It's interesting as the Lions have gotten better over the last couple of years. That our fans almost kind of don't know how to handle success sometimes. And I stop people shy of that. And I'm like, the real fans do. The fans who are hopping on bandwagons don't, because when you hop on bandwagons, you never get used to that thing called losing because you never quite stick with one team. And the toughest thing about the situation we find ourselves in Detroit is because we are getting so good. So therefore you can raise the prices. And a lot of people would argue they've priced a lot of the diehard portion of Lions fandom out of going to games. I don't see myself going to any Lions game ever as long as they are decent. Now, if someone comes along to me and goes, hey, I have season tickets, or, I got a couple extra, here's one, you can go, then yeah. But if as long as the cheapest Lions ticket is on the road in Los Angeles or San Diego, I'm not San Diego anymore, but you get it, in California, I'm not going to be able to go. And that's you talk about a key problem with the Lions right now. That's something that I think is worth talking about. And we've heard, a lot of these diehard season ticket holders that go to games that are like, the people that go to these games sometimes are not there for the football. They're trying to start the wave when we're down 14 points in a divisional game. And then they're there, with the companies, with people that, they're interviewing or clients, or it's become one big corporate hangout. And that's the tough thing is, again, you're pricing the diehard fans out of an opportunity to go and watch and consume the product. The only people that are going to these games consistently is the silver spoon platoon. It's the people with the money in the first place that are just able to just kind of, whatever, I'll throw $700 at a ticket to go to this game. It's ridiculous. And I am in a kind of a position where my girlfriend works as an administrative assistant, and she works in the real estate business, and so she's around people that make some pretty good money, and I just remember hearing about some of them going to 2-3 games this year, and it's like I would do obscene things to go to one game, and it's like, I'm not broke. You know what I mean? Like I'm like most Americans. I'm doing my thing. I'm not striving per se, but I'm doing okay. But there's no way. There's no way. My price range is about NAIA basketball and, maybe some, upper end hockey games, maybe a Griffins game from time to time. That's my price range. And so, but it didn't used to be like that. I think of my dad. He's gone to so many great games. 4 ladies in front of us. Yeah. Yeah. That is the perfect explanation. It is about, it's almost like a rock concert. It's about the clout. Hey, I'm at the Lions game. Look at me. This is great. I would be locked into the game the whole time, me personally.
Yeah, I until the crazy drunk fan starts to get annoying. I mean, that's the one thing, that, and to be fair, the Vikings fans, I feel like are like, well, and I've been there for a lot of other fans. Green Bay are pretty terrible too. Chicago gets pretty bad, but I feel like Vikings fans are like the worst. Alcohol just hits them differently. I don't know why it does. I mean, I just feel like alcohol hits Minnesota just different. And maybe I'm wrong. But every time I've gone to a Lions game, and I've been there for Minnesota, and I've been there for Chicago Bears, I've been there for Green Bay, I've been there for Pittsburgh, I've been there for a Seattle. I've been there for a ton of different fan bases. Pittsburgh brings a whole bunch of people with them, and they are terrible. The terrible towels, right? I mean, we know that they can be terrible, but something about Minnesota and alcohol, they just don't mix. And again, I don't know if it's they just can't handle their booze or what it is, but I always feel like there's projectile stuff coming out, and it's not good. But that's my opinion. Hey, I want to dive into this. We talked about this a little bit on Friday, and we talked about relegation promotion, and I responded to Reindeer 44, and I even during our show we responded to it. But after I did a video on Saturday about this comment, about my comment, Reindeer ultimately ended up giving us some responses, and here are his responses. They're available on our you can actually go on our TikTok and take a look at
you go to Aurora.com stadium, for example, in Columbus,
all the comments and things like that. I'm not going to do all that, but what I want to address is,
can you pause the video?
I can,
the money component. There we go. Sorry.
There we go. I'm hearing two of you at the same time.
Oh, I didn't know you could actually hear. I apologize. I know you can actually hear it, so I will go ahead and mute it. All right. So, he obviously thanks for the reply. Of course, Reindeer. Of course. So this is where I want to. He responded in 3 ways. Yes, the U.S. is big, but so is Brazil and Russia. I'm not as familiar with the Russian soccer leagues as I am maybe with Brazil. So, but it was interesting. He said Russia. I thought that was an interesting thing. But if we're talking about improving the love of soccer in the U.S., it's the only way an investment has to be made. If we think for 1 second that improving soccer in America, it's going to come in the form of relegation and promotion, if that's what we're hanging our hat on, that soccer is going to get better in America because of that, totally disagree with you. I totally and utterly disagree. Like, we're going to sit here and say that soccer will get better in this country if we promote and relegate teams. Again, do not agree with that statement at all. And I guess you have to appeal it back even further, Nathan, is why would it make it better? What? Because there's more at stake? Is that what's better? I mean, right now, players are getting paid millions of dollars to play. Owners are throwing out millions of dollars. I mean, there's a lot of already at stake, and it's money. But I don't know. I don't know if relegation and promotion will make the game better. Right now, it might make it I would say more interesting headlines and undertones and things like that. But I don't know if it makes it better. And Steve comes in and says, from rumblings I've heard, the first time in progress, the MLS is moving to the European calendar. And now moving, that makes a lot of sense. It does, because following the European calendar, it means that, yes, it'll be colder. They'll be playing in colder weather a lot more often. But it will allow, especially when it comes to the international game and the different tournaments, because they all kind of share that same these international windows. MLS doesn't necessarily share those, so you lose a lot of players, and that can have an impact, right? So these international windows would definitely help in the calendar. But it would not make soccer in this country like better. I think it would make it different. I would say better. I don't think that promotion and relegation in European land or in Brazil makes an argument makes it better. Right? It's fundamental. It's what they've been doing since the beginning of time. And this is where it gets more interesting for me is if you look down this next comment, he says 20 planes to the top 20 teams. So that part doesn't, I don't know if that one holds as much air. Air, not water, air, boats. Water. We should give them all boats. But I don't know why giving 20 planes to the top 20 team. Like, what does that even mean? So are we saying that the MLS will be now 20 teams? Like, is that what we're saying? And then or the highest level. To be fair, I'm not even sure what hierarchy in professional soccer would even look like with relegation promotion. So do we even call it MLS anymore? What do we because even the EPL, it's like Division 1, 2, right? You get in it's not like it's like EP. I mean, yeah, there's maybe different levels after that, but I believe it's EPL 1, EPL 2. I don't think you go down to like different names of leagues, right? So you're not going to call it like MLS and then the NPS or whatever other leagues are going to be called underneath it. I think it would just be MLS 1, MLS 2, MLS 3 if you were to do the promotion relegation. I could be wrong in that, but anyways, giving the planes, I don't know if you just give someone a plane, they can just fly it wherever they want to, not have to pay. So the initial cost of the plane would be wiped away, I guess, but then you got to actually fly the plane, and that can be expensive. I actually Googled that this morning. It's $5,000 to $18,000 per hour based on how big the plane is. Let's see. And let's see here. The EPL didn't tell Luton Town they couldn't play. And the town came out in support. I think it would bring more love for the game, especially where there's more riding for the community. Yeah. I don't know if that's the case. I don't think that Wrexham would have, if they aren't. I look at Wrexham. If there is no chance to be in the, the next level, I don't think Wrexham's love for their community would go away. I mean, I could be wrong. I could ask, I guess, but I don't think that's how it works. The average fan doesn't have any idea, like the nuances of relegation and promotion. I mean, if we were to ask 10 people in the soccer community what relegation promotion meant, I bet you 2 of them would figure out what that really actually meant. The other 8 would have no clue or probably wouldn't even care. And maybe I'm being a little bit, over the top. Maybe it's more like 10%. Here, a big pro rel stand, but I don't think I'll see it in my lifetime. I think it would need to be an EW system anyway, just to help control travel. Yeah, east-west. But then how would that work then? Like, how would that work? Like, you're going to have an east-west? Pro Rel just offers any club there to progress to the ranks, holds clubs to a higher caliber, to a higher standard, not to drop off, does not ensure talent or overall. Yes, Steve, I don't disagree with that. But here's the biggest problem with all that is that we talk about the infrastructure. We talked about money, and money is obviously a proponent of that. All of our teams, for the most part in this country, outside of the MLS not included, right? Let's put MLS over here on this over here, okay? Most of your teams that are below the MLS, except MLS Next, because most of the MLS Next are playing in their sister stadiums, right? They're playing in their lower.coms. They're playing in the MLS stadiums already. So we're going to exclude them for a second too. But your USL championships, I mean, most of those are not being played in built stadiums for the soccer team, right? They're not, right? They're playing in makeshift stadiums. They're playing in, maybe there's a football field there, maybe there's not, I don't know, but again, it's a different environment. Maybe they have 3,000 seats, maybe they have 7,000 seats. There's no consistency. The MLS used to kind of operate that way. They didn't really care. You can play in a football stadium, you can play there, but now it's like you got to build yourself a stadium that's got 25,000 plus people in it. That's what the MLS wants you to do. So you're talking about promotion and relegation in an environment where a team could be playing at a freaking high school stadium for all we know. Right. Right. Again, look at Detroit City FC. They play literally in Hamtramck at a former high school park. Now they've done some work to it and they can get 7,000 people in there. But if you ask any player or anybody who comes through Detroit City, I think it's great. I think it's a great environment, but they call it a shithole.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're again, these stadiums are not all, they're high schools, colleges, they're kind of playing at a variation of stadiums across the country. So different than that, what you're going to get when you go across to Europe, because even though these teams might have small stadiums, they are soccer specific stadiums being played in soccer environments. And again, they 2,000 to 25,000, they're varying degrees, but they're all soccer specific stadiums. They're not playing in like a cross between a high school stadium, whatever. That's going to be your biggest challenge outside of travel, would be where are they going to play? The biggest problem facing America right now in this country is access to soccer specific stadiums, because your local municipalities aren't building a soccer only field because it doesn't, they can't rent it out. Right. You want to rent out the most opportunities, right? You want to have football lines. You want to have lacrosse lines. You want to have every possible sport lined on that field. And so if you do that, that means that you're not going to have a soccer specific thing. So most football stadiums in this country, or most high school stadiums, are going to be that of a combination of lines. And then you might have a auxiliary field off to the side that has a scoreboard and a soccer only field, but it doesn't have any stands, doesn't have power, doesn't have the things that you would need to do this. So I get it. I get that people want this thing to happen, but there's no infrastructure. There's no, how do you manage it? These teams can't manage it now. And someone's had to sell me on this, man, because I just don't get it. I don't get it.
And I don't think you really have to take it any further than the money conversation. The schedule itself, if we want to get closer to the European model in terms of when we play games and what that looks like, I say do it, because that's the model we have to follow, right? And the truth is if we want to get any semblance of what the soccer community is like over on the other side of the pond, we have to do everything we can to try and steal or take certain things from their model and make it our own. I agree with that. But it will always come back to the money conversation. And it's not just because, okay, this is America, everything's always about money. I agree. Okay, there's a lot of that there. But it's money and it's geographical concerns, right? Travel. And we talked about at least the UK itself, and how it takes about 6-7 hours to get to the top and the bottom of it. Infrastructure is very important too. That's the state of Texas is bigger than the UK. So in terms of geographically speaking, it's just naturally going to take that much more to get the logistics to where you need them to be. Look at the contracts, JT. Okay, Messi, right, who is widely regarded as one of the greatest soccer players of all time, right? Him and Ronaldo, that's the big conversation. I feel like you and I should yell at each other about that sometime, because I feel like people really like getting into that talk. It's like the MJ LeBron thing, but widely regarded as one of the greatest soccer players of all time. He's making $20 million playing over here in America. Now, you might hear that. You might go, wow, that's a lot of money. He's making over $20 million. You want to know what the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott, was making to win how many games this year?
Well, he got knocked out like 4 games in, didn't he? So
yeah, well over $100 million. Oh, and by the way, that's almost something that is becoming universal in the NFL for some of the best players.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so where is the rest of that? Let's just say the 80 million does exist that Messi's not getting. Where is it going? Stadium upkeep, grounds, making sure people are being paid, coaches, trainers, right? Facilities. Also, these planes that we're going to be handing to the top 20 teams, who has to pay for those? I imagine that it's not just free. You don't just drop a plane somewhere and like, hey, we're going to go from New England all the way over to Seattle, Washington, and play a game with our group of guys that are from a town where maybe 500 people come out to the game to watch us play. Yeah, we got a lot of talented players. Money just doesn't grow on trees. And so there is this part of the American experience that is just always going to kind of drag this idea down. And it's that the money isn't necessarily there because people aren't coming out and spending oogles of money, whether it be merch, whether it be following the game in this way or that way. That's the part about this whole thing that it doesn't logistically make sense. And I would love for it to make sense, because I've kind of become immersed in the soccer community since joining this podcast. And honestly, I think high-level soccer is very entertaining. It's funny because people walk up to me, they're like, "Are you doing soccer now?" Like, it's like I'm a sellout. And I'm like, no, I think it's a very, 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 very entertaining sport if it's played at a high level. But the greatest player in the history of our game is making $20 million, which, by the way, is chump change compared to what maybe the fifth guy in the rotation on the Colorado Rockies is making. And it's because we're in the US of A, right? Logistically speaking, it doesn't work.
I want to put this in perspective. Okay. The NFL in 2024 generated $12.87 billion. That's what they generated in 2024. Okay. The Premier League generated $15.3 billion. Okay, so the Premier League across the pond, 15.3 billion, 12.25 billion euros. Okay, or UK, whatever the money is over there. The MLS with 29 franchises, $2.3 billion. All right, so it's not even close,
and that's not even talking about the other professional tiers that people want to give a pathway to the MLS.
It's not even close, right? It's not even close. We are, and again, someone's going to say, well, we can get there. Well, I mean, to go from $2 billion to $15 billion, I mean, you know, almost 8 times, right? You know, almost 7 times more than what you're doing now. I mean, everyone always tells you getting the first million is actually the easiest. It's going from $1 million to $1 billion. That's the div. It is not easy. So again, way off. And do I think it's possible? Of course it is, because you're going to raise ticket prices and things like that. That's one way to do it, right? Get bigger deals. But yeah, that is the conundrum right there. It's the money aspect of this. And again, Peter makes a great comment. I can count on one hand how many soccer-centric recreation fields are in the Chicagoland area. And obviously he's based in Illinois. I agreed. If we talk about Michigan, you know, you've got Hamtramck, which is, you know, Keyworth Stadium. That's a soccer-specific stadium. They used to be football-specific as well, but that's gone now. They've invested in that. But Detroit City is actually moving to a new facility. They're building their own stadium. That will be soccer-specific. Most of your colleges in Michigan are going to have their own soccer-specific turf and/or grass field, right? I can go down the list, but they all have it. But like Madonna has a soccer-specific field, but there are, I think, lacrosse lines on the field, if I'm not mistaken. Lake Orion High School here in Michigan, they've had a long-standing soccer-specific, but there's also lacrosse lines on that. So it's not only for soccer; it's for lacrosse as well, right? So these fields, while they might not have the football lines, are you know, they have the other sports lines, and again, because of what we know, if you're, you know, city of wherever USA, and you're going to invest millions of dollars into a turf field, you're doing that for the upkeep, but you're doing it for the rental space. You want to be able to rent that space out to Little League football, to cheerleading, to band, to soccer, to lacrosse,
events,
to every event you could possibly think of, so you can generate revenue for what you just invested in. And you're not going to do that when 30% of the rental, you know, is soccer, and 70% is made up by lacrosse and football, right? So again, it's to pay the money to and build a stadium, you know, that costs money, right? You know, and that's going to obviously be another factor in all. Money. And that's why I said the other day, you have to have the money. And that's the reality of this whole thing. The promotion relegation conversation will continue, I am sure. We'll probably continue to have this conversation, especially since we keep talking about it. But I feel like you need to sell me on why. Okay, I can tell you why we can't do it. What's the why we should? Right? Not because the game will get better. Okay, so you put more at stake. There's a chance your team can be relegated. Okay, so your team's going to play for a little harder, a little longer. They're going to work a little. You're going to try a little hard. Yeah, great. No one wants to get relegated. But aside from that aspect of it, what makes it better? I would love to know what makes promotion relegation makes the game better. Outside of that, it creates better storylines and headlines that we can all kind of get behind.
The other thing I'll say here too, and it annoys me. It doesn't just annoy me; it actually frustrates me when someone will say in a comment, if you're talking about the Lions and you're a Lions fan and you use the comment, well, we didn't play well tonight, or we didn't do this, or we didn't do that. And then someone comes in and they're like, were you on the team? Every single time, I will stop and be like, would a team exist if it wasn't for me? Would the team even be there if it wasn't for the fan? The fans are the reason why these players make millions of dollars and get to play every year. You and me are the reason why they exist. Okay, so if anybody wants to throw out this, are you on the team? They wouldn't be there if it wasn't for me or everybody else that spends money on merch, on watching the games, on going to the games. Right? So what is the biggest key thing that's missing in all of this? Passionate fan bases who are all about soccer. And we are fighting an uphill battle in the United States when it comes to that. Because we have football, because we have basketball, because we have a lot of these other sports that parents are getting their kids involved in early, right? And they're hearing it at school. Oh, soccer's not cool. Or they're hearing it in spaces. Oh, you talk about soccer? Who cares? That's what we're fighting right now. We can change the model. We can put more money into it if we want to. We can do all these other things, but it starts there, right? It starts in the conversation spaces. It starts in the schools. That is what we are trying to overcome in the United States, right? Because the Lions, the Michigan football, that helmet behind me, I didn't graduate from Michigan, right? But the football team would not exist if it wasn't for the millions of people who didn't go to Michigan but still cheer and come to the games and spend money. The NFL would not exist if it wasn't for the millions and billions of people who are like, this is the greatest thing ever. I'm going to spend all my money on jerseys and whatnot. That's what we're fighting. And it's this invisible target. There really is no how, but soccer. Come on. I'm trying to make a serious point over here. No, yeah, he's got a point. But Jesus, Peter out of left field. But that's it. It to me, JT, and it's hard. It's really, really hard. And I imagine there's kids out there who are like, I love soccer, and then their friends are like, that's dumb, and then they're like, okay, well, I guess I'll go do the other thing everybody else is doing. That's what we're fighting. That's what we're constantly fighting.
It is a fantastic point. And obviously, we talk about this, the EPL and over in Europe and in Brazil and across the world, soccer is number one. There is, and then everything else below that is like a distant second. There is, it's not, again, what am I wearing right now? I'm wearing a Lions gear. You have and I have Lions behind me. I don't have a team here locally. Detroit City is the closest thing to what we would call our professional teams, right? Obviously, they're USL Championship, but I'm not invested as much into the Detroit City side as I am to the other sports. I grew up being around football and being a fan of football, not a fan of soccer because it wasn't around. Now, my children, they are more accustomed to it, right? It's a generational type thing too, right? The more that soccer is prominent, the more generationally it'll start to be more popular. And that's, I think, a factor. If the closest team to me is Columbus in the MLS, I am not wearing Columbus Crew gear all the time. on this show, right? I'm not going to do that. Team USA. Team USA does not play games here in Michigan. They play them everywhere else but Michigan. I mean, they've played, I think, a couple games in Ford Field over the last number of years, but but they never really had anything. So I don't have this connection other than what I do with all these other teams around the country. So it's different for me. But yeah, again, we'll continue this conversation. I think it's a good one to have. It's a hot topic. It's always gonna be a hot topic. And we are going to start letting you know what we want to talk about each and every day here on this platform. And that's something that we've, I think, not failed to do, but I think it's important that you know what we're going to be talking about next. That's what I think is important. So, you're going to get yourself into here tomorrow, the next day, and the next day. So we will start to work towards creating what we consider to be a topic each and every day. So that way it's not like we're rambling, but we want to be able to be consistent about our message and part of our show. So that will continue here moving forward. But we appreciate you stopping by. Great podcast, gents. Have a great week. Thanks, Peter. We appreciate you. But that is a wrap here on this week's first show of the week, episode number 25. Is Jimmy Coe says excellent convo again later, Gators. But either way, any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
Is our Barry Bonds episode. That's my number 25 for the day. I'll see if I can pull up a number 26, but I think we hit it out of the park, JT. I think that's what we did. So
boom.
The Barry Bonds EP, all but done.
Boom. And we did it without performance enhancing drugs. And
no juice.
just caffeine. That's all we had today, right? But have a great rest of your Monday, and we'll see you back here tomorrow morning 9 a.m. on Inside the Game. This has been a presentation of the National Soccer Network.